Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the BMW breakaway session at the India Today Conclave 2023. And this is titled Sustainable Mobility, New Ways Forward. One of the toughest environmental and social challenges of our time is managing the mobility of people and goods. As countries across the world try to tackle this extremely important question, the need has also come to bring about mobility in as sustainable way as possible in order to protect the earth. Through the union budget this year, the government has given a clear direction to zero carbon strategy for the economy and has been consistent in its push towards green mobility. Indian automobile manufacturers too have shown their readiness to transition towards sustainable mobility. But how far have you reached on that road to that transition? What are the new trends and global experiences in this regard? To discuss these and other issues, we have with us today a stellar lineup of experts. We have Mr. Vikram Pawar, the President of BMW India, Mr. Deepak Bagla, Managing Director and CEO of Invest India, one of our top promotion and facilitation agencies. We have Mr. Sudhendu Jyoti Sinha, Advisor, Infrastructure Connectivity, E-Mobility and Compliance Burden at the Niti Aayog. We have Mr. Rajesh Menon, Director General of the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. And we have Mr. Yogendra Pratap, who is the editor of Auto India. Let me take my first question to you, Mr. Pawar. When it comes to the automotive segment, there is an increasing awareness to shift from traditional fossil fuels to green mobility. How do you perceive the change in this regard happening in India compared to your global experience? And what are the challenges that, according to you, have cropped up?
Thank you, Arun. Yeah, that's a great question, I think, because I think auto industry right now is in middle of a big transformation, I would put it that way. And we as an organization also are going through that. But it's nothing new also on the other hand, for auto industry, because if you look at the way the environmental regulations have happened over the years, it's been very progressive. And I think that is where now it's headed towards, is now moving towards a balance of multiple technologies existing together, which will all be environment friendly. It's not going to be anything like, I know everybody talks about only EVs, but EVs is one part of the equation, I'll put it that way. And yes, the shift will happen. From our perspective, we are one of the very few manufacturers who have actually subscribed to the Paris Agreement of the 1.5% or 1.5 degree max for the climate change. And I think for that we are taking very concrete measures. And this technology in terms of electric or hydrogen is part of that equation for us. So we are very aggressive on that. We are at least making sure by 2023, in 90% of our product range, there will be at least one electric vehicle available, so that the customer can choose across our range, whatever product they want. And also, we have committed that we will globally have 15% of our sales electric in 2023 itself, moving up to 50% by 2030. But it could be faster, honestly, the way adoption is going. In India, very similar things, very similar concept we have. We are providing all the products that we produce globally in India. As soon as they're available worldwide, they're available in India for our customers. We are already seeing on the demand side 15% happening in terms of electric mobility demand, which is really encouraging, because I think India is going to really lead the way compared to some other countries. And we were just having a chat earlier, and I was saying that it is actually very logical, because the usage in India is very limited. We use our cars only for 40, 50 kilometers a day, unlike Europe, where it will be 150, 200 kilometers you're doing a day or something like that. So I think from that perspective, great opportunity for us. Challenges, of course, infrastructure will be a challenge, but I think it's a responsibility between the state, the customer, and the businesses to solve that. And I think I can see really good development, at least from our side, we're making sure that we are creating a private charging network ourselves, which is open to the public. So we have 32 chargers, fast chargers across the country, which anybody can use 24 hours a day. So I think those solutions will happen, but I think the good sign for me is the demand is happening already, which is great.
Okay, great. Before I come to the other gentleman, I just want to bring in Yogendra here, my colleague, who has tracked this sector for several decades now, and he has seen some of these things, happening at a very close range. Yogendra, would you like to add something to this regarding the adoption part?
Yeah, so the one very clear trend that we can see is that the adoption of different forms of mobility or different sources of fuel for mobility is going to happen very fast if adopters are given solutions. So electric mobility, we are already seeing demand wildly outstripping supply in the country. People want more electric cars. We are also, and electric is just one of the ways forward. We can be looking at biofuels, we can be looking at hydrogen, which our government has already enunciated a roadmap and a plan for. So what is really surprising is that now the supply is a challenge and demand is there because fuel prices are going up and have been going up. People see them going up even more. That's what affects people, whether it is two-wheeler users, whether it is luxury car users. So maybe at the upper end of the segment, people are also looking at climate change. But for the majority of Indians, it is the daily cost of mobility that is affecting them. And they're looking at other ways of using mobility and powering their daily commutes.
Great. Let me come to Mr. Deepak Bagla. The transport sector in India is considered to be the third largest emitter of carbon dioxide, which is a clear reason why the center has gone in to promote green mobility. You have watched a lot of things happen in, as far as the investment is concerned in these spaces, especially in the startup side. Could you throw some light on, some of the exciting things that are happening in this space?
Thank you, Arun. May I just first take off from where Yogendra left us? You spoke about the adoption. They say a society's ability to adopt and adapt is positively correlated to the mobility of that society. Now think about it. India is probably one of the most mobile societies on the planet. I'll give you a number. 2019. Guess how many train tickets were sold in that 1 year? And I'm saying 2019 because it's before the pandemic. So let's say it's a normal year. 8 billion train tickets were sold in 2019. You moved the entire planet. Now that also brings about the sense of adoption to a new technology and adaptation to a new technology very fast. Talking specifically of EVs. The first million EVs took us about 5 years. The second million EVs took us 11 months. Now, if I look at the number of EVs sold, let's say from October last year until February, every month we exceeded 100,000 EVs. Every month. You see the adaptation and the adoption which is moving so fast where this is concerned. And you know what's interesting, and let me take a little, do I have a little time on this, Arun? Please. One of the big elements where this is happening is, apart from the society, is the sense of innovation which our startups are bringing into this. They're bringing in new solutions. And what's interesting is I have about 1,400 odd startups in the EV business. Close to 1,000 of them, about 970, are already registered with the government. But what's interesting of that 1,400 odd startups is that about 50% or 48% of them are from tier 2, tier 3 cities. Now a startup is giving you a solution. And the moment you have a more diversified geographic situation, you're obviously trying to bring in far more solutions of a different kind. that is what is bringing the strength in the Indian context. By the way, I must also tell you, EV mobility has a lot to do with inclusion. These startups, about 44% of them have a single woman director on each one of them. So that's another part of a new India which you're looking at, which is moving very fast. So putting all these things together, I think the entire focus, and you've seen the Honorable Prime Minister's focus on creating, if I'm looking at it, the first green industrial revolution in the world is what is taking shape in India today. And it's being led right from the top. You look at the policies. You had the national mobility policy, right, which was out for the EVs. And in 2020, you have the PLI policies which are coming in, which is again backing up and creating that momentum. So I think a lot of it is being facilitated and led by the entire leadership, which is taking, and we are already starting to see results on it.
Wonderful. Let me now bring in Mr. Sinha, who is an advisor to the Niti Aayog. In fact, Mr. Bagla has already talked about certain strides the government has taken. I think maybe you can add a little bit more to the kind of investments and the encouragement that has come from the government side, and then we can further move on.
From government perspective, the understanding is very clear. Automobile industry as such is, one of the most fabulous growth driver for the entire economy. 7%, 7.1% to be precise, of GDP, overall GDP, and 49% of manufacturing GDP. We are internationally, after this December, we are third largest automobile market of the world. That is where position is. Now bringing it close to EV, that is precisely in this budget what we called green growth. It has been a part of the green growth. In EV, our expectation is that in the next 7 years, our CAGR will be close to 49% per year. And by the time we will be closing down on 2030, our sales will be, and I'm sure we are going to surpass it, our sales will be close to 10 million vehicle units a year. This is going to generate close to 5 crore job opportunities. So this is a prime focus area. That is the reason why Prime Minister in the global mobility, he laid down the paradigms of clean mobility, and as a follow-up to that, within 6 months, the National Mission on Transformative Mobility was set up, housed at Niti Aayog, to go in with interministerial kind of consultations. And as Mr. Bagla rightly mentioned, that number of flagship initiatives have been taken. It's an amazing strategy. We did not generate a policy. We generated schemes and programs. Policies were left to the states because we wanted them to have the ownership of it. And that is the reason why today, 33 out of 36 states, they have been either able to finalize their policy or they are able to it is in the final draft stage. The idea is very clear. States view these policies not only as something to adopt EV, they take it as an opportunity of investment, attracting investment into the state. That is what they look out of. So if you see these states and the way they have moved on, in fact, at NITI we initiated an EV accelerator program. Because as you know, in India also states are at differential level. And we wanted them to be a partner of it. All these states are game for it. Similarly, the way it was being mentioned about the startup ecosystem, we have nudged the IITs to go and create centers of excellence, centers of innovation. Because after all, this mobility paradigm is completely based on technological innovations. It will keep on changing very fast. 16 out of 23 IITs are having centers of excellence. 13 dedicated programs where 18 departments are coordinating in these IITs. And these are not only the best of the IITs. Even Mandi, Jammu, Varanasi, Jodhpur, Dharwad, they are the IITs we are taking it forward. What I'm trying to say is that this is one area where I find that regardless of political affiliation, regardless of economic strength even, all states, the entire country is game for it, and they are trying to take it forward. So this is what the core strength of behind this EV is, and that is the reason why we are pushing it so fast. Yes.
Great. So I think we have heard, opinions and views from the government side as to what the strides we are taking. How do manufacturers look at it, especially the Indian, the domestic manufacturers? There is a clear intent by the manufacturers in going into sustainable mobility, and certain concepts like CNG, ethanol, hydrogen. These are no longer esoteric terms. These are now part of our common lexicon. But what are the challenges as we go forward? If Rajesh Menon, who represents CM, the Director General, maybe he can throw some light on this.
Thanks, Arun. I just, from an industry perspective, when you talk about sustainable mobility, what does it mean? Sustainable mobility, from our perspective, would mean reducing the carbon footprint. And what does industry do to ensure that we move in terms of mobility technologies, we move towards reducing carbon footprint? And also, how do we ensure that we reduce our oil import substitution? So we have, of course, heard a lot about EVs, but there are multiple pathways, and industry is adopting multiple pathways. Electric vehicles, we just spoke about it, we just heard, is one pathway. There's a lot of movement happening on biofuels, ethanol. I'll just speak a bit about it. Ethanol, flex, we saw that on display, what is called flex fuel vehicle at the Auto Expo. There's a lot of work happening on CNG, hydrogen. So there are multiple pathways. Industry is currently in the process of working on it. There's a lot of, and there are different levels of adaptation. Just to now talking about penetration numbers, we heard some numbers on electric vehicles. As per the data which we maintain, we are, for example, in cars, in the passenger vehicles car, we are still only 1% of the market. So there is a lot of potential, but it is in the last 2 years, 3 years, we started seeing much higher penetration, but this will go in a much faster speed going forward. It's 1% of EVs is in cars. In two-wheelers, we touched 4%. In three-wheelers, we touched 53%. So the penetration has really been rapid in the last 3 years, but we still, I think, you will see a much faster penetration going forward. But interesting data now on a gaseous fuel CNG is cars is already touched 11% for CNG. I think this has not been spoken about enough. We already have 11% penetration of CNG cars. We have roughly around 29.8, that is 30% penetration on three-wheelers in CNG, and we have around 6% penetration of CNG in commercial vehicles. So we have started seeing industry responding in all elements of technologies. One last point I want to mention about biofuels is that Honorable Prime Minister advanced the E20 implementation program from 2030 to 2025. So all cars which will be manufactured, all cars and two-wheelers, gasoline vehicles which will be manufactured in India after 2025 1st April will be E20 compliant. So we will be 5 years in advance of the timeline earlier committed. In addition to it, we are now working on what is called the flex fuel technology, which means the vehicles can be E20 to E85 compliant. That means I can take up to 85% blend in both cars and two-wheelers. So there is a lot happening in the industry, and and the government has been extremely supportive, positive, encouraging with all the policy which was spoken about, and we will be working in alignment with industry, with the government on this.
A quick question to Vikram. So you heard from the government advisors, policymakers. You've also heard from the industry body. So how ready is a company like BMW with the different pathways going forward? We see a lot of your electric vehicles, but what are the challenges and that will be coming from the using of different fuels? Maybe hydrogen may take over from electric vehicles. And they're talking about so many startups that are innovating. Are you ready to face these challenges? How does a legacy car maker deal with this very fast and changing scenario?
I think Yogendra, I will just say that they're not challenges, they're all opportunities actually. Because one thing is there, as BMW, we've always been progressive. We were the first ones to introduce the electric cars, even when people were not even thinking about electric mobility at that point in time. Say in 2013, we got the i3, we got the i8, which was a plug-in hybrid vehicle. And we've been working on these technologies for a long time. And today also we believe, like I said, there's not one technology that is going to solve the problem. Okay, so we spoke about the E20, so our cars are E20 ready. Rajesh knows that we were ready even before. Electric mobility, we are probably, I think I can still say, in India, we are offering the widest choice. Not only just in the premium space, but in the entire industry, because we've got 4 distinct products that we offer in India for our customers to choose from. We're also working on hydrogen. So we've been working on that for the last 4 years. In 2023, we'll be producing 100 hydrogen cars, which will be utilized for demonstration and testing purposes. So we're already on the forefront of that one. What we foresee is that hydrogen, which is basically a fuel cell combined with great battery technology, is a really clean way. But that may not be the solution for everyone. So that's why electric mobility, hydrogen mobility, biofuels, will exist. And so would probably some of the traditional engines as well in the space. So that's why we have the widest coverage on those ones. And as far as the startups and everything is concerned, I think startups are going to add to the adoption and creation of an ecosystem for all these mobility. I don't see that as a competition as such. So I think even 1400 startup that you talk about, when I look at them, I mean they will create a lot of ecosystem for charging, for ease of use, for convenience for a customer to choose vehicles, not as such to compete so much with the OEMs as such. So I think it'll be a very collaborative approach and a great opportunity to, at least in India, I can clearly see that we could be in the forefront of that green movement very clearly.
Wonderful. I mean, that's a lot of optimism that comes from a multinational, auto company. And I think the reason for that optimism is also the kind of policy environment that we are in, and which Mr. Bagla and Mr. Sinha has rightly put across. Maybe let me check with Mr. Bagla again as to, how do you ensure, the consistency in certain policies? For instance, we already have a 5% GST on EVs, which is put in place, which sort of, is really a big booster for EVs. So there are several such things that have. So if you could just give an idea of, the thought process that goes, in the government machinery when it comes to, the policies that are around the sustainable mobility space.
Arun, let me just get into the policy making, which is what we are witnessing in the past 9-10 years, especially in the past 9 years. Actually, some of them are now becoming business school case studies as to how fast they've been able to get such outcomes which are there. Typically, look at it, what has been happening in this government where the policy is making. One, there is very intensive stakeholder consultation. Very intensive. I mean, I think everyone here has been a part of those consultations. So all these ideas and the requirements are actually coming from the industry and the stakeholders itself. That's the first element, and that is where it is working out extremely well. So the drafting and the structuring of that policy. The second is, there is a 360-degree approach to the policy making. For example, when we are talking of EV, if you look at all the policy structures, they're both on the demand side and the supply side. If I look at the PLIs, etc., they create the supply side of it. If I look at the scrappage policy, if I look at the MMPP otherwise, that is more on the demand side, which is happening, and the FAME. So all these, the demand and the supply, so it's working out together. Now add to that a leadership which is monitoring the impact of that policy on an outcome-oriented basis, on a week-by-week basis. I mean, I've seen, at least in our entity, the kind of discussions and, everything is pointed out to us what is to be delivered. And those deliveries have always happened. And there is a system to ensure and help you to be able to match those deliveries, to make it happen. So there is always this recalibration wherever required has also been brought in with that sense of flexibility. And that is very clear, that recalibration and flexibility in policy making to make it impactful, especially when you are in a very rapidly transforming and disrupted environment. So that is where you're seeing the success, which we are already beginning to see on the EV side.
Great. Mr. Sinha, you want to add something to that?
Supplement what Mr. Bagla is saying, that a lot of stakeholder consultation, plus, we also keep on thinking. I'll give you an example of none other than FAME 2, which is right now, faster adoption and manufacturing of e-vehicles. So in 2021, a couple of years around this time only, we were looking very, in a granular way on this particular policy, that what is there that is holding us to go anywhere close to the target. So let's see what was the target. Let's give you example of, say, two-wheelers. The target was to support 1 million. When we say 1 million, actually the vehicles are 3 millions. Not all of them qualify, but 1 million, that was the target. And what was the achievement at that time? 35,000. That is 3.5% of a target, which is a percent that you can't even, think of saying before someone. For the first time, realization came that different vehicle segments, they are like individuals. You can't be giving the same prescription to all of them because their requirement, their clientele, their risk perception is altogether different. So what we did was for the two-wheelers, I'm just taking one example. For the two-wheelers, we said that let's raise the incentive. That was only for the two-wheelers. And today the result is from 3.5% to 85%. In just 2 years. This is what the number is. On the buses also, we thought that how to go about it. Someday the FAME subsidy would get exhausted. And then the principle of aggregation was adopted. And then we also focused on the 9 cities. And from today, we are close to, supporting, of course, a differential level of support is there, 19,000 buses. This is a very big number. From Indian perspective, it appears to be less. From international perspective, it is a fabulous number. The whole of America and Canada put together has got 1,500 buses alone. South America, all continents, all countries combined together has got 1,000. Last year, the whole of Europe, 24 countries which are into electric mobility, they could just get 2,300 vehicles registered, electric vehicles, electric buses registered. And this is the number that we are pulling off. So, what I am saying is that a lot of stakeholder consultation, a lot of recalibrating, a lot of thinking through goes into a policy. And the best part is that no policy we think is that it is static. Whenever it needs to be slightly, upscaled to the advantage of either, supplier or to those who are demanding it or to the entire ecosystem, we are game for it, yes.
Great. So I think, in short, all the stakeholders seem to be on the same page when it comes to something as important as creating sustainable mobility. Maybe Mr. Rajesh Menon can further dwell on some of the challenges that are there, because you have a very close on the finger of the you have a finger on the pulse of the industry as such. There are so many rough edges that still need to be ironed out, when it comes to this, because, the investment is huge. There needs to be so much more research that needs to be done. How do you view that, things shaping up?
See, there are clearly some challenges, but as Vikram mentioned, many of them do turn into opportunities. So one, of course, which was spoken briefly as infrastructure. So charging infrastructure is a challenge, but as was mentioned and referred to, there's a lot of discussion happening on how to address that problem. When you speak about biofuels, there is of course concern on availability of fuels. How do you ensure that 20% ethanol is available pan-India all the time? So if once we move into a flex fuel vehicle, how do you ensure that 85% ethanol blend is available at multiple locations? So currently we're speaking about CNG. The CNG price is a bit of a challenge. So there are challenges in multiple technology options. We spoke about hydrogen. There are different types of hydrogen technology being spoken about. There's hydrogen ice, there is green hydrogen, there's a hydrogen fuel cell. So there are some technological based challenges, but I think as was mentioned, there is a very, very deep discussion and engagement with government at different levels. And I'm sure going forward, many of those challenges will be addressed.
Great. I mean, good you mentioned about the technology part. I want to bring Yogen also into the picture. Autonomous mobility is, being talked about. I mean, electronics is playing a big role in vehicles. I mean, cars are not just, for movement alone. It's a whole digital experience that the customer is looking for. What are the kind of trends you're seeing that, in India?
So just coming back to what Mr. Menon was saying, I think it's teething problems for e-mobility in the country, and especially on the four-wheeler industry. There are lots of service providers, lots of charging options available, but not all cars can be charged at all charging stations. There's lots of issues with payment protocols, the different, I already have, I think, 15 apps on my phone for charging at different charging stations. And that's only going to grow because every day I keep on hearing of new players that are entering and are setting up. I mean, how do I track all this? Each app needs me to put in some $5,000. So, I mean, where will I buy a car from if I keep that much money parked in all the charging apps? So, a lot of teething issues. The other one is that you take your car to one charger, it doesn't charge. You take it to the next charger, it charges. You talk to the service providers, what's the problem? They can't figure out. So, I mean, all these cars are being homologated in India. The central bodies know of, what the requirements are. All the charging providers are also going through some central body to install their chargers, to get permissions. Why can't there be, a direct communication between these to ensure that when the chargers are there, that all cars can be charged? Why can't there be a central payment gateway that doesn't need me to put money all over the place and then try and see how I can recover that money? Sometimes it becomes very difficult. I don't see a way of, getting my money back from the Tata Power app, for example. So, yeah, so there are challenges, there are teething problems, and I think we have the right gentleman here who can also help and, take this forward and make adoption of EVs smoother and their usage better. So just to add to what Mr. Menon was saying. Now going back to your question about, yes, cars are becoming gadgets, they're becoming really powerful computing systems, and I think most of BMW cars actually, if the legal framework can allow, can nearly drive by themselves. So it is also what our government is putting into place to adopt sustainable and safer mobility. I think those are buzzwords that we should keep focusing on. Yeah, sustainable mobility is good. We need to look at the full ecosystem. We need to see how the cars are being made. What is going, are we using sustainable materials into them? How they're being recycled? The big question about electric mobility, of course, is the lithium-ion batteries. I mean, what happens to them? Where will they be recycled? Will we have the infrastructure in place? Already we have so many EVs out there, cars not so many, but as Mr. Sinha said, two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Will we be ready for, recycling those batteries and using them? So, a lot of questions, and going back to autonomous driving, I think the industry is ready, but we also need to have a framework where these cars can be allowed to run in the country. Yeah.
Great. So let us have maybe some final comments from the others also as to where we are and what the future holds. I mean, is there something that we can quickly address? I think we can start with Mr. Menon, if you want to just.
No, I think future is extremely positive. We have started, as I mentioned in the beginning, there has been a rapid increase in penetration of different types of mobility solutions, depending on different types of fuels. Future is extremely positive. There are going to be some challenges on an immediate side, but as we experienced the last 1 or 2 years, we will be addressing those challenges. Only one thing I want to mention is when we talk about sustainable mobility, one of course is different types of fuels which we are going to see in the years going forward. But there's also a lot of focus and attention by industry on safe mobility, which is as important as fuel solutions. So we have started to see, if you notice, in terms of our vehicular safety, we are probably now very close, very aligned with what is the global standards on safety. There is a lot of focus on safety in different aspects of all the vehicular segments, and which we have even come up with some indigenous solutions on safety. So industry will be very, very responsive and responsible on all these issues, whether it's sustainable mobility and also in safe mobility.
I think this is one sector where the futures come to you much faster than you were expecting it. And think about it. I was thinking when I'm going to buy my next car, first I thought it's going to be a hybrid. This was about a year ago. Today I'm certain it's not a hybrid. We are all moving into the EV. So just tighten your seatbelts. It's a different pace this country and this sector is taking off.
Mr. Pava.
I think I'll agree with Mr. Bagla that yes, the future is being written as we talk right now about this sector. And I think we have declared ourselves that we're going to write it very clearly by 2025. The newer Class A, the new concept that we will launch will be all green, so electric to start with. It will be all digital and it will be all circular. So it's not just the one dimension of just electromobility. It's also looking at, digital, which enhances the safety, which includes autonomous driving and maybe virtual situations as well. And also circularity, ensuring that there's an end of life cycle. And also while you're producing the car or designing the car, you use recycled material or secondary materials or less materials. So I think, future is very good, and I think India would probably adopt it much, much faster. That's my clear expectation of, the way our country is so dynamic and adaptable. I think we'll be leading the way in this one. Yeah.
Okay, maybe a final word from Mr. Sinha.
So I would say that, from a stage where national aspiration was just to adopt electric vehicles, now we have moved it further. So it is to become global manufacturing hub on electric vehicles. So whether it is a vehicle, it is the components, it is the advanced chemistry cell, we want to be internationally best. And the way industry is responding, I'm sure that given the quality parameters that they are committed to, the supply chains that they want to establish in India, the localization percentage that they are gradually committed and increasing forward, my sense is that the time is not too far. I can see it, that when our vehicle units will be outside. Just in lighter way, in a couple of years back, when OEMs used to be in my room, they used to always charge me, किसके लिए गाड़ी बनाए, खरीदेगा कौन? Now I keep on asking them, कितना बेचा, फॉरेन में कितना गया, कितना एक्सपोर्ट किया. So now they will say, अच्छा report देख के बताता हूँ, kind of thing. So it's good, that is what the aspiration. If somebody says कि न्यूजीलैंड में हमारी गाड़ी जा रही है, नेपाल में हमारी गाड़ी जा रही है, fair enough, it's okay. Something is being happening. And when a three-wheeler owner says कि कल Bill Gates हमारी गाड़ी पर थे, we tweets करते हैं. I said, when you are having Bill Gates as your driver, please ensure that the quality is really, really world class, you see. Thank you.
That is wonderful to hear that. I think the ball is now in the court of the automobile manufacturers to lead the way and take on whatever steps the government has taken to bring sustainable mobility to fruition. Thank you all. I think we had a very thought-provoking session. Thank you all the speakers and the audience for all the patience you have had. Thanks once again.